Digimon Hunters Season 7, Digimon Cross Wars Part 2. Fuck me. I hate this season. I know that's not like a super edgy opinion, you know. It's as edgy as saying your favorite season's Tamers, but I didn't know what I was getting into when I watched this season for the first time. And, well, okay, so in the past, I've disliked Cross Wars, and I've disliked Frontier, and I've had some harsh things to say about O2, but generally I was able to find one thing that I really liked, or found generally acceptable. Even if all the rest of the season was trash. I could say with like Cross Wars, the season's terrible, but Nene was pretty good in the first half of the season. You know, some of the villains look cool and have interesting moments. Frontier has an interesting setting. I like the world it sort of created, but Hunters has none of those. There's no characters that I like. Nothing looks cool or unique. In fact, a lot of stuff just flat out looks bland. The villains, well, we'll get into them, but yeah, this is just not a season I elicit any joy from. It is a season that I despise, and I cannot legitimately imagine anyone being able to say that this is a good season. It is that poor and that terrible. So, without further ado, let's get into what is essentially my endgame. So, in short, Digimon Hunters is a direct continuation of the Cross Wars season, taking place 1 year after from when Bagramon was defeated and all the Digimon flew up into the sky. Yes, we are doing the O2 style of a season, which is a bit troubling given many of the problems that season had, trying to keep itself straight, you know, canon-wise with adventure, but it makes sense in many other ways. O2 was a very popular season for the series and set the standard for a lot of story and character beats. For example, we have Yu, who is essentially a glorified Digimon Emperor reformed clone, now in his post-villainous phase, and we have another returning character, Taiki, who is still just the gariest Gary Stew out there, but we have a third character, a new character for this team, the character of Toguro, who is this season's answer to Davis in the I'm an obnoxious, hyperactive pest whose personality grates on your soul and really makes you wonder why anybody in this team hangs out with me. And yes, he is our main character, just like Davis was in O2, and I'm gonna stop making references to O2 because that's gonna get old really, really fast. I was hoping he'd just turn out to be a comic relief side character and Yu would be the main character because that'd be an interesting turn. But no, he's not only the main character of this season, but he will maybe turn out to be the mainest character out of any season, and we'll get into that a bit later. So yes, these three kids are introduced as very good friends in the beginning of the season, even though it seems like Yu really doesn't like Toguro, and Toguro's mainly in the group just to learn how to be as cool as Taiki. Ugh. We're also very quickly introduced to what I guess we will call our villains. Even though they don't operate like normal villains in the series. They're more of the rival B team that a lot of times don't really go out of their way to harass our heroes. They just have their own set of goals and agendas, and sometimes they'll intersect, and most of the time they're just dicks. There's three of them, but only one of them really matters. Ryuma, who just tells Taiki cryptically that the Digimon are back, and this time they're coming for the real world. After that, Toguro runs into these three nefarious characters and gets sucked into what is called the Court Zone, I believe. I think that's how it's pronounced. I could be wrong. And to be honest, I'm not even 100% confident I'm saying Toguro's name properly. Or Ryuma's. But whatever. It's gonna be called the Court Zone in this video, damn it! Toguro tries to join up with the cool kids after getting there, but the cool kids tell him he's not cool enough and go tell him to hang out with the nerds, and that's where he meets Gumdragonmon here. And here I'm just going to lay out the premise of the show so we don't have to keep just going through the motions with this first episode. So, this place where these kids are at right now, this is the court zone. This is where Digimon that try to escape the digital world end up, and they're allowed to interact in limited ways with the human world in various capacities. You've got these kids. They're hunters. They hunt Digimon and capture them for various purposes. Sometimes it's for fun, sometimes it's for power, sometimes it's just to be dicks, whatever. The kids capture and keep their Digimon in these newfangled X-loaders, which, just like in the last season, you can fuse Digimon together with each other, but in this season, you can only fuse 2 at a time. I guess to prevent Taiki from making Shoutmon Infinity or whatever that last fusion was. So anyway, that's the hook. That's the premise of this season. And that's pretty much the closest we're going to get to a story for a while. And this is all explained pretty much by this guy who's the clock master, who's this mysterious figure, who will obviously be more important later on, but as of this point in the story is just a weirdo who just seems to know a lot more than he's letting on. He also thinks Toguro would be a great hunter, so he gives Toguro his X-loader. So then, after that, we have Gumdragonmon here teaming up with Toguro because Toguro is stupid and Gumdragonmon thinks that he can take advantage of him to become the most powerful Digimon, I guess. But they have that very sort of standard, I saved you and you saved me and now I learned to be your real friend and we're bounded by camaraderie now. And following that, we have a very predictable parade. We have Shoutmon coming back into the story. We learn that he is now king of the digital world, and we learn that him and Gumdragonmon have a little bit of a history, a sort of disappointed mentor and rabble-rousing student sort of relationship. And Damimon comes back to life. So, I mean, this is pretty much to be expected. Nothing really surprising, just, standard setup for the rest of the season. But here's the thing. The rest of the season is really, really bad. It's just the structure of the entire season is pretty much villain of the week. And that's always been Digimon at its weakest. And it's always been also standard in the intro in the beginning while they're setting up the story and setting up the characters. In Data Squad, we had sort of villain of the week structure in the beginning with those dumb little mind eraser flashes. But it was also setting up the relationships, or specifically the rivalry or tension between Marcus and Thomas that would run through the rest of the season, sometimes in the background, sometimes as the main conflict. It was present and it was set up in the beginning, so it could be there once the narrative started to pick up. So we get an idea of how our new heroes and their Digimon interact with one another, what sort of parameters their characters are working within, and all this, before, say, Myotismon invades the human world. It's good to have that established before major plot beats start happening. But, yeah, this season doesn't really... Okay, so it never gets out of Villain of the Week. And it also never really establishes these relationships in any sort of meaningful way. There doesn't feel to be much like continuation of a story or of a narrative. A lot of the episodes seem like they can just be interchangeably swapped with one another. Like, to highlight this, when I first watched this season on a website, I didn't notice that the episodes were out of order. I watched 5 episodes completely out of order, and I had only minor confusion. One of the episodes wasn't even in there. This episode with these things attacking the bakery, this episode, I did not see this the first time I watched it. And I kind of think back to when I was a kid, and I would watch Digimon on TV. I watched Adventure 02 and Frontier actually on TV when I was a kid. And I just remember, sometimes they would air episodes out of order, and I could tell that something wasn't right. I was confused about some things, and while I'm not saying all seasons have to be the same, have the same structure, have the same story beats, have the same, narrative, and I'm sure a Digimon season that does not have a narrative can work. I just feel like in some ways it's a bit of a step back, and it's just not something I feel works very well. Especially since I don't like these characters too much. Like, we have Yu and Taiki. Taiki is pretty much the same as he was from the last season. Yu is just bland. He's the straight man of this story. And if you were to tell me that in the last season he was like a homicidal weirdo, yeah, I wouldn't believe it, because he doesn't give off any vibe like that. He doesn't give off a vibe that he's like holding any guilt or any sadness. He's just kind of like, just sarcastic. Like I said, he's straight man to Guru's obnoxious behavior. And I guess the other trait is that all the girls love him because he's just so handsome. Yeah, okay, whatever. Then you have Toguro, and Toguro, like I said, he's an obnoxious, hyperactive punk. He's just a punk. And that's starting him off pretty low on the totem pole for me. I don't really like these characters too much. That's not to say that they can't be good. Marcus kind of was in that position for me, and I feel like he eventually worked himself up to be a good character at certain moments, but typically through his relationships with other less important characters. I think those relationships helped ground him and really helped him excel in some moments. Toguro, because like I said, this whole season is Villain of the Week with very little narrative continuation from episode to episode, doesn't really get to build those relationships, so he's kind of just annoying, hyperactive, annoying, stupid, just all the time. Until the last 3 episodes when, oh crap, we have to do a finale. So now that I've done my quick little rundown of these characters, let's talk about what an average episode in this season looks like. There's a person, usually like a nerdy or unpopular kid, and he's dealing with a problem that's pretty shallow or uninteresting. A Digimon appears as like some sort of ghostly apparition and promises to help him, and things go awry. Enter Team Dipshit here, who has to show up and save the day by kicking the crap out of the Digimon and capturing him. Rinse and repeat, over and over again. Occasionally things will be changed up a bit when our heroes run into other hunters besides the rival team they're competing against. Well, competing. There's a few of them, but they're all pretty much inconsequential. They don't do a whole lot, and usually they can just be dropped from the story and have nothing change. I'm sure they're added to make it seem like there's more than just 6 kids competing in this, multi-dimensional competition, but like I said, nothing's really done with them. They don't join the team, and they don't have any real interesting personalities. They're also not incredibly useful. This girl here is the most useful out of all the side characters, and that's just because she can swim underwater. And that's only really useful in her episode and the finale. Speaking of joining the team, you're probably wondering, whatever happened to those other characters from Cross Wars? What was her name? Nene, who was desperately trying to find her brother. Or Kira and his inferiority complex and trauma that he tried to overcompensate for. Or Taiki's best friend Akari and Zenzuro. Characters that were really big deals in the last episode that now just seem to be gone with no explanation. Well, they do appear in this season, and their appearances are pretty much the only episodes, I think, that are worth recapping. Because they're the only ones who build on any sort of lore and expands on their personalities a bit. I personally think they mostly butcher their personalities, but hell, if you care about Cross Wars, then you're probably going to want to know what happened to all the people 1 year later. The first reunion we get is Akari's and technically Zenzuro's, even though, spoilers, Zenzuro's only in like the last minute. Now, there are two conflicts in this episode. The first is that there's an evil Digimon named Super Starmon who wants to capture all the world's biggest superstars. So he invites Superstar Hunter Taiki to a superstar restaurant so he can capture Taiki and put him on display along with other superstars such as President Barack Obama. But that's stupid. So instead, let's focus on the other conflict. Taiki wondering if he should tell Akari that Digimon are back. Personally, I thought this would be like the first thing Taiki did. I mean, the show tries to like make it this conflict where Taiki's like, oh, I don't know, Akari's been through a lot. I don't know if, telling her Digimon are back is a good idea because she's been through so many fights. But let's be real here. Taiki would be much more concerned and overjoyed at the prospect of reuniting Akari with all of her long-lost Digimon friends. I mean, so much of the last season was based around trust and friendship and stuff. Like, come on. This to me comes off as such a non-conflict that I personally think goes against Taiki's characterization from the last season. But anyway, Akari finds out that Cutemon and Shoutmon are back and there's a crisis going on, and then she's gone for the rest of the season until the finale. They bring back one of the main characters from the last season just to have her appear in this episode, essentially, to tease some shipping bait between her and Taiki, and then she doesn't do anything throughout the rest of the season. I mean, come on. Like, the two worlds are colliding together. Like, we are seeing a potential war between the digital and human realms. But I'm sorry, Akari can't be here for that. She transferred to another school and is like a half hour away. Like I said, it just feels so weird. Like, they tagged along with Taiki for so long, despite pretty much being useless for most of that. And then they're in the human world where they could be arguably the most useful they've ever been, and they're just absent. Like, the world is crumbling around them, and they're not present. It's so, like I said, it just feels so weird. Next we have Nene, and if you thought that I hated the way they handled Nene's character in the second half of Cross Wars, this just like pisses on anything that was left and just destroys whatever positive characterization was developed in the first part of Cross Wars. So, as I'm sure you remember, the main conflict for Nene during Cross Wars was that she was hunting for her little brother Yu, who was taken by Dark Knightmon, who kind of turned Yu into like a weird, creepy sociopath, and she was on a scorched earth campaign to get him back and bring him back to Earth. She almost dies on this campaign. Sparrowmon, her best friend, almost dies on this campaign. Yu almost dies on this campaign. In fact, almost everybody almost dies on this campaign. So after all that sacrificing and danger, what do you think Nene's gonna do now that she has her whole family together back on Earth? If you said spend time and cherish her family, you'd be wrong. If you said join the idol circuit and become a corporate property, almost completely isolated from her family, welp, you're right, and you probably wrote this season. This episode 2 is, I think, like the worst in the season, because it just makes me angry while the other ones just make me depressed. Nene's in Hong Kong about to put on a concert, but she's concerned because some evil force is preventing her from touching people. She doesn't know exactly what's going on, but she knows Digimon are involved. And at this point, the question is, why doesn't she go back to Japan, cancel the concert, and hang out with her brother Yu, who, was kidnapped by Digimon like a year ago? But no, obviously the better option is to ask Yu to come to Hong Kong with Taiki, not tell him why he's coming, and just have them fight her war for her so she can continue living the high life of a, rich Japanese idol celebrity. I don't care how many people could die at this concert. We are not refunding anyone's ticket, god damn it. It's not like you and Taiki are any better. They don't even tell Nene that they're bringing a third guy. He just shows up and she's just like, who the hell are you? It just annoys me that this story takes place in the human world and nobody's using a cell phone or a landline to just talk to anybody. No one's communicating with each other. And it's so freaking unnecessary. You can have them talk to each other. Not everything has to be a mystery. Just have you in like the opening scene just vomit out expository dialogue about how, oh, I was on the phone with Nene. She's having a problem with some evil Digimon running amok in Hong Kong. She's afraid to leave the city and she needs us to come be there. Also, hey, don't be a total dweeb and try to shake her hand. That's really not cool. You can't tell me what to do, and I'll do it anyway. That is the entire first 8 minutes of the episode, done in a way that makes the heroes look far less incompetent. This villain is also worse than Superstarmon. It's just Nene's dad who was like, Nene, I think going to Hong Kong to become an idol instead of going to school is a really poor idea. Well, fuck you, Dad. I'm going anyway. No, Nene, I have to fuse with the power of Harpymon to kick it so that no one shakes your hand to prove how much I love you. Like I said, this is an incredibly awful and stupid episode that just takes away any positive features that were left in Nene and just destroys them. It's terrible. It's also kind of weird because I feel like it's supposed to be a comment on idol culture, and it's kind of like weird rules around like holding hands and shaking hands, which I guess is supposed to be critiquing the like creepiness of fans and also the rigidness of the lifestyle that kind of creates these incredibly talented, beautiful, perfect human beings that so many people seem to worship. But anyway, let's go from the worst episode in the season to what I think is the best episode in the season, the one that has Kiria in it. Now, this is the best episode because it changes up the Villain of the Week formula a bit and actually makes it seem like there's a larger world being impacted by this conflict and seems to be more impacted by previous events, unlike a lot of these episodes that just feel so disconnected from one another. It also sets some stuff up for the finale, which, once again, it's nice to feel that this episode is actually impactful or connected to another episode. The episode itself isn't really too complicated. A mysterious clockman discovers there's an out-of-control Digimon on an island, and he decides to invite hunters from all around to come try to capture it. He explains to Taiki about the upcoming threat of the Digimon coming to the human world and how there's going to be a lot of bad stuff going down. And then it turns into an episode where Team A and Team B are competing with one another, but then have to team up together to defeat the giant evil monster. And then Kiria shows up at the end. And I'll give this episode some sort of credit. Kiria's absence from the story up until now is actually explained in a logical way. It's just that he's kind of gone underground, doing covert ops for, I think he's working for Clockman, but I forgot. So yeah, they couldn't contact him to tell him about Digimon or ask him to come fight for their team because, well, he's already doing it, just independently, which in many ways fits with his character. Even though I think the point of the last season was to say he should work as a team, or at least he learns how to work as a team. But whatever. It's a compliment I can give this season, just this one time, that it seems like they finally have handled one of the characters from the previous season that isn't Taiki decently enough. And we also get a sneak peek of what's to come. Who's that? No way. Could it be? Yes. Let's start in with the finale. I know it's a short review series for a season, but hey, not many episodes, and the finale is the only thing that people seem to be really talking about with this season, at least from what I've seen. I haven't seen a lot of discussions in chat about the time, was it Puppetmon kidnapped the computer club and asked him to build a giant robot? Or the time that Trailmon or Locomon flew across the sky picking up kids? Yeah, not a lot of interest in that sort of stuff. It's the finale That's why we're here. That's why I watched it. Hell, that's why I watched all the seasons I missed before watching this one. Because I felt like I had to be up to date on all my Digimon knowledge for what I was about to witness. So this season's finale begins at episode 23, which at first starts off as just another Villain of the Week, like Hamburger Village tier episode about trying to catch a beetle, and there's a kid who loves bugs who wants to catch the beetle, and of course, the beetle is a Digimon who kidnaps the kid who loves bugs, because of course he would. But this episode changes it up a little bit by showing that this Digimon had already been captured and is rather fleeing his quote-unquote owner, which is heavily implied to be Ryuma. This Digimon talks about how there's an evil monster that is consuming data and that he was meant to be sacrificed as a way to appease this monster and help resurrect it. But before he can get any more details, he gets eaten by, I guess, the monster. And after a little bit of fighting, this season manages to shoot itself in the foot harder than any other season I think I've seen so far. Because in comes Marcus and Tai to save the day, prematurely blowing its proverbial load all over this season's face. Yes, this is the important thing that everyone remembers from this season. This is what people talk about in regards to this season. How the finale is one prolonged crossover episode. Even after Tai and Marcus leave after quote-unquote defeating the monster, we get glimpses of other characters fighting together, including a little sneak peek of Nene fighting alongside the best character in the world and the not best character in the world. So yes, this is the setup for our last couple episodes of this season. All the old heroes are back fighting alongside, just completely screwing over whatever like canon or universe building all of them had. Just old Clockman here was able to pass across dimensions, pass even into TV shows that other characters had watched to bring them to this one universe to fight evil monsters together. And on its face, it seems like this is going to be balls to the wall insane. This is building off of how many years, like what, roughly a decade of Digimon coming together in just these last few episodes. Like, there's so many directions that this could go. And it's such a bold move. I thought this was going to end up being the absolute last season of the series. And there's so many cool things you could do with it. And I'm sure a lot of fans had been kind of like in their head imagining sort of moments like this, wondering like how exactly would, Izzy interact with Tommy, or how would all the team leaders look fighting alongside each other, and other fanficky questions like that. And there's a lot of potential here. It would be a shame if it was all squandered into just like one kind of cool moment and the rest just pure trash. That would sure suck. The next episode starts off kind of with like a shameless sort of nostalgia baiting bit where the Hunters team has to fight a rapidly evolving Diaboromon, all while the human world and the court zone are sort of fusing together. And we have people being absorbed in this like green digital mush. It's definitely, like I said, a clear like nostalgia baiting moment, but I kind of like it. At the same time, I kind of hate it just for how like blatant it is. But at the same time, it's thrown out all pretenses of like being a respectable sort of season finale. It's gearing itself up to just be like a complete shameless hodgepodge of references. And if that's what it's going to be, that's fine. While Diaboromon eventually morphs into the boss, quote, rock monster, the Clockman starts gathering all the hunters that we've seen throughout the season, while the boss rock monster releases a small squadron of, well, Myotismons, because what else could it be, folks? What other Digimon could it be besides Myotismon? Well, the old man explains that the court zone and all the Digimon seem to be flooding into this specific location due to the fact that this is where Bagramon died. And when Bagramon died, he left his arm behind, which is like a massive source of interdimensional power. Like I said before, this is all very fanficky, and we need to recover the arm to save humanity. We also learned that when Bagramon died, this led to the materialization of the evil Digimon Quartzmon, who Mysterious Clockman has been fighting with the help of Kira, and how he's also been forced to call in the help of others. Now, we all know what's coming from this. We've already seen it from the last episode. The question is, who's going to be here and how long? And we get some of that answer as the old Clockman describes that in order to fight this global epidemic of Quartzmon invading the human world, he recruited heroes from other dimensions. And I'm just going to say this is pretty much all we're going to see out of most of the heroes from the past seasons. Like, we get these still frames of these black outlines of characters. You know, like we see Beelzemon fighting alongside Sora. Well, we don't see them. We see a picture of them in silhouette. You know, something that might actually be kind of cool to see animated, even if it's like just for a few seconds. Or it would probably also have just been cool to see like them fighting alongside in a detailed drawing. But no, we get these detail-lacking images is how I'll describe it. And at first I was thinking, like, is there some sort of, like, contracting dispute or something? But I thought, well, we did see, you know, Mimi and Rika together. So why not Beelzemon and Sora? It's just so sad. It's such a missed opportunity. But let's not waste all of our sadness now. We've got a little bit of season left to spend all that. Anyway, Taiki is revealed to be the 6th great interdimensional Digimon champion. So they need to recover Bagramon's arm and align him with the other 5 great interdimensional heroes so that he can have the power to defeat this evil menace that is threatening the world. But Taiki can't take on this threat alone, so the wise old Clockman decides that the best course of action is to take all the hunters that he's assembled in this area, take them into a pocket dimension, and then allow them to fight amongst themselves to decide who's the strongest and most deserving to go fight alongside Taiki and save the dimension. So while that's all being decided, this season again decides to play to past nostalgic feelings by having Cross Hearts reunite to fight an army of Myotismons, even giving Akari and Zenzero their own X-Loaders. Now, for a lot of people, this was probably a really cool moment to see all of Cross Hearts again together, fighting alongside each other. I as you know, I didn't really like Cross Wars that much, but I will respect that some people really did, and will also concede that the fight scene between them and the Myotismons is pretty good. Meanwhile, the competition to see who the best hunter was pretty much just became a showdown between Toguro and Ryuma, and they have a fight scene. But shock of all shock, Ryuma actually wins and is gifted this thing. I think it's a sextant. And he will be the hero of this season, the great mighty 7th hero. Meanwhile, the 6th hero is getting the ever-loving shit kicked out of him. And just when it seems like there's no hope that all the Myotismons who have now digivolved to stronger Myotismons have won, guess what? Guess what happens? Marcus just comes out and punches a Myotismon in the face, and this is the moment, guys. This is what we've all been waiting for. All the past main heroes come together for one big fight. And it's pretty good. It's easily the highlight of this season, which is what it's supposed to be. It's got some humor in it. It's got a lot of good action. They even do get some of the lesser heroes to make appearances. Joe gets a line. Ken and Matt show up in person. Couple other people show up. Even this thing comes back from the dead to show up just for this one moment. And we get an overall pretty good 4-minute long fight scene with all these characters just slaughtering clones of the most iconic villain in the series. And I really hope you liked that sequence, because that's effectively the end of this. End of this team up. End of this, bringing together of these characters. End of this nostalgia trip. And we unfortunately have to return back to the plot of Hunters, because although this seems like the climax, we're actually just finishing the second to last episodes. We have one more episode. And it's going to have a pretty high bar to stand up to. So the episode ends with all 6 of the other heroes coming to meet Taiki and Ryuma, who are going to team up to save the world. And they need to be there so that they can lend, them their power to take Bagramom's arm and form the spirit bomb. And everything is alright until Ryuma is actually evil and he stabs Taiki in the back. Maybe literally, I don't know, it's not clear here. But then the start of the next episode, we get another twist. Ryuma isn't actually evil, it's his Digimon, who's really Quartzmon. Whoa! And he's been possessing Ryuma the whole time. Whoa! How could this happen? Whoa! Then he starts blowing up the world. No! So now Toguro has to save the world because literally nobody else can do it. And the old man stops time so they can go pull Bagramon's arm out of the river for a second time. And I'm going to say this one last time. This is another one of those most fanficky writing moments I think I've seen in this entire series. If Toguro was a self-insert, he would be such a Mary Sue at this point, where Taiki throws him his goggles and is like, you need goggles to be a hero. And then all the past heroes are all just giving him words of encouragement. And he's like, I don't know if I can do it. It's so so corny. It's bottom of the barrel fanfic writing. I'm writing myself into this series to hit on my underage waifu. Bad fanfic writing. And then, I love this, after Toguro gets Bagramon's arm, which is called the Brave Snatcher, by the way, and flies off to go fight Quartzmon, time unfreezes, and everybody dies. For all intents and purposes, they die. It's not just, the heroes from this dimension. It's the heroes from every other dimension just die like just little bitches. They get just consumed by Quartzmon, essentially making Toguro the greatest hero of all 7 dimensions. It's just so bad. It's so terrible. Which is sad because at times there's some interesting visuals and creepy imagery, but it's all ruined when Quartzmon turns the earth into his head. God. Anyway, just to wrap this up, because we all know what's gonna happen. Toguro's gonna fly into Quartzmon's little fortress area or pocket dimension or whatever you want to call this, and he's gonna be like, oh man, Quartzmon's so strong, I don't know if I can beat him. And then all of his friends are gonna appear. In this season, they're appearing as disembodied heads on TV screens that are acting as a wall. And they're gonna be like, come on, Toguro, don't give up, you can do it or else we're all gonna die. And Toguro's like, I guess I gotta do it. And then he does it. He kills Quartzmon, a villain who has nothing going for him. And then everybody from the entire season shows up to tell Toguro congratulations on killing Quartzmon and saving the Earth. And then humans and Digimon are separated for the billionth time in this series. And then the season ends with the old Clockman informing Taiki that Quartzmon has been returned back to the digital world. He's actually a reformed Bagramon, as if that had anything to do with anything now. And what do you know, Digimon are already back in the human world. The end. Well, congratulations. You did it. You made the worst season of Digimon ever. If I had to describe this season in a word, I would use the word cheap. Every episode almost being the same villain of the week, setup, that don't have any meaningful lasting consequences or subplots that last into the next episode. It seems just really cheap and at times very jarring. Like, there's an episode where a Digimon hypnotizes a bunch of kids into almost being sacrificed into a satanic ritual, and everyone just comes back to the school like the next episode and acts like that never happened. It'd be like if there was a school shooting and your math teacher got 5 rounds put into him, and then like everyone just came back the next day and never talked about it. The characters also feel really cheap. Yu is like the most interesting character in the season, but that's just because of like the fact he's changed from the way he used to be. But even then, he's not doing anything with that. He's just like the straight man in the comedic situations who all the ladies love. And Takuru is just terrible. He's bottom of the barrel, comedic, I'm a nice, dumb guy character. And that's all he is throughout the whole season. He develops a little bit to be more like, I've got to do the right thing and step up, but it's like not that much. And I was originally going to blame the fact that this season's only 25 episodes, which is really short for a Digimon season. But this season also just wastes a lot of time. So I can't even give it that. And a lot of this is because the season doesn't have a strong, reliable, consistent villain. Like, we get Quartzmon and technically Ryuma, but like, Ryuma and his team of assholes like aren't really villainous throughout the entire season. One of them, who's obsessed with collecting cute Digimon, actually helps the heroes out a lot. And Quartzmon as a villain just sucks. Like, Apocalypse levels of just like, I'm coming at the last second and I don't have a real motivation. And I just want to kill everyone because like that seems like something a villain would do. Just kill everybody and take over the world. Like I said, it sucks and it makes the season look really cheap. The finale with bringing back all the heroes is kind of cool, but also seems like such a wasted opportunity. Like, let's be honest, this feels like a once-in-a-franchise experience. At least in television form. I could see it happening in like a video game. And it's actually why I thought this was going to be the last season of Digimon. Because like all the seasons up until now had very self-contained finales. Like all the other seasons have like endings where it's like the heroes get like a new stage of an evolution, or they get words of encouragement from characters within their universe. They don't go outside their own universe to pull other characters in to be like, oh, by the way, could you just like come in and tell me I'm really great so I could beat the final boss? Thanks. And I just thought like it's gonna be really hard for another season to follow this finale. Although is this, would I even call this the finale? Because these heroes, despite being the legendary 6 heroes from alternate dimensions that we've all grown to love and see like grow in terms of character and power, and they just show up to beat up like henchmen, or like just not even like henchmen, clones of an emotionless creation that looks like something else, and then they die. And like I said, it sucks because it's like, this is a real cool opportunity. This should have been a movie or like a really long episode. Like, I'm thinking of like, didn't Yu-Gi-Oh have like a movie where all the heroes like came together and they played a card game against a villain? And there's a lot of like times they were interacting with each other. I think Power Rangers also does something similar like that. And as a fan, I imagine that's really cool to see. Just like this, in theory, should be really cool to see. Instead, they just like fight for 4 minutes, and it's like, isn't that cool to see them fighting? And I'm like, I actually probably would have liked to see them like interact a little bit more on like a personal level, because they all have like really unique personalities. All 6 of these heroes, well, 7 if you count you know who. It would have also been really cool to see more of the, like, what we would, I guess, call in this situation the side characters, the not main hero heroes. Especially since, like, at least from what I remember, like, those characters were usually more popular than the main heroes. Like, Ken, Izzy, Rika. People seem to like them more than Takuya, Davis, Tai. And I know I'm probably asking for a lot to have, like, all, 35 characters in the Digimon having like unique interactions to satisfy my fanboyism, but this is just like such a special opportunity, and it just doesn't fit with this season. The season tries to, like, let's push it to the edge. Let's go all out by just screwing over all the canon of the other seasons and shoving all the characters here. And they don't go hard enough when they should be going all out. And I know I'm spending a lot of time talking about this finale, but like I said, this is what people remember about this season. It's a very cheap and lazy season with one thing that is so unique to it that you just, if you're like even a casual fan of Digimon, you kind of like have to watch at least that 4-minute fight scene. And this is the whole reason I wanted to do this whole series, is I wanted to talk about that because like I said, I went back and I watched every season of Digimon to get ready to watch that finale. And the result was just so like disappointing that it actually motivated me to talk about Digimon for, God, how long has it been? Like over 5 years just to get to this moment, to just say, I hated this. And I think that's just a good place to end it. I'm going to just say for the last time, play me out, Boss Tones, and I hope you all have a really good night.
The shark skin and the tortoise shell